we can get started. Okay. Right off the bat, who has a question?
I don't know if I missed something oh, frick. But how many questions are on this? Like, and what do they contain? Or like they only true and false, or like fill in the blank?
So there's going to be 3 short answers and then 1 essay question. So the short answers are 2 to 3 paragraphs long, and you can just type them. And all of these instructions will be up on the board too during the test. And then the essay is like 1 page, 5 to 6 paragraphs.
What are some tips that we need to know to go like to do well on this midterm?
So the biggest things are going to be that you answer all the different parts of the question. So like it could say, do you think race is a social construct? Why or why not? Give examples of how we see this of how this is played out in everyday life. So you're going to want to explain, is it a social construct? Why you think it is, and then give examples of how. And these can be, it's really good to include your own personal thoughts and how you form these conclusions, the experiences that you've had, but also drawing on the readings we've done for class. And you don't have to be like quoting things word for word or being like crazy specific. It's mostly just knowing either the title of the reading or like the author, and just saying like in like Andrew Cherlin in his book talks about how Americans are always in committed relationships way more than other countries, so you can just briefly refer to like you can be as specific as you want to be, but don't feel like you need to have like a specific quote or statistic or something in order to bring it up. Them just backing up your points is going to be useful.
Okay.
I guess that's kind of like, I don't know if this is a question or just more of a like concern that I have, but just like that I'm afraid that like in the moment I'm not gonna be able to remember like who the authors are and everything. Like, is there like any I don't know, advice you would like have for us to like, I don't know, like have I like I said, I don't really even know how to phrase my question. It's more of a concern that I have for me though.
Yeah, I would say that if when you're taking the test, there's a reading you can think about that supports your claim, but you don't remember a title or an author, it's still going to be better to just say in one of our class readings and then talk about it than completely skipping it. So give as much information as you can remember, and that will always be better than not having it just because you don't remember everything.
I did have another question, like how is it going to be graded?
That is a good question that I don't entirely have an answer for. Each question will be graded separately, and then the essay question will be weighted heavier than the short answers. So like, I believe when I took the test, they were like out of 10 points or something each question. So yeah, it would just be looking at each individual question. Like we're going to split the points up, and then each question is worth a certain amount of points. Is that helpful? Yeah, just make sure that you really read what they're asking. When I took this class, I did not do well in the midterm because I didn't see that it said 3 short answers. I think in my head I read like 3 total. So I did 2 short answers on the essay. So I missed like all the points on that one question, obviously, because I didn't write it. So just make sure that you are reading what's being asked carefully, and like you read the questions carefully so you know all the different things that are being asked of you so that you address them each. You don't have to give each question like the same amount of space. You could just say, yes, I do agree that race is a social construct because, and right there, like that half a sentence already answered the first question. But then take more space on the things that need more explaining.
Is it possible if you could tell us like what the main topics are for the midterm, or do we just study whatever the midterm review tells us to study?
Yeah, the midterm review is pretty good. You just want to know the basic, or not basic, but the overall concept of the different topics we talked about in class. So like universal factors that lead to healthy development in families. That'll just be knowing that like, you know, universally attachment has been seen to be good for people, right? And other factors that have been shown time and time again. A good place, if you guys are feeling really overwhelmed, like you don't have a ton of time to study and you want to know where to focus your efforts, the takeaway slides on the PowerPoint are really good places to start. Make sure that you can, like, I would go to the takeaway slide, and each bullet point, I would make sure that I knew how to explain what that point was saying, how we got to that conclusion, and why it's so important. And if you can answer those things for the takeaways, you'll be pretty good. And if you do have time, obviously I would recommend looking over all the the whole PowerPoint. And then for readings, if you took any notes, like look over those, but ideally the reading summaries are there so that you can like read them quickly, remember what the article is about, and then you shouldn't have to reread the whole thing to study.
Well, that's all the questions I had. So are you like going, are you going over anything like specifically, or like are you just waiting, or are you just answering all the questions we have?
I'm going to go over, well, I'm just going to kind of read through the different topics we've discussed in class. And if there's a topic that you guys aren't totally sure what we talked about or want a reminder or have questions about, we will talk about that.
Okay, cool.
The first thing was the divine role of diversity. Does anyone have questions on that? It's good to know what the church believes about that, and society, and your own personal beliefs. Research, let me look at the midterm. I don't think there's anything about research on here. Okay. When thinking about research, it's not going to be like explain what a statistical spread is or something. It'll be more like, what are the qualities of good research? Like they had a good sample size and it was representative, or like what do good researchers do? Are they objective or are they neutral? or things like that. And I think a lot of that is covered also in the multi-level family influences, becoming family scholars. So knowing, do you need something to get this? My roommate needs my strainer. Knowing what, like, kind of like the backfire effect. Do you guys remember when we talked about that? And so being able to explain that in terms of research and why it's good to look at multiple sources and not cherry pick and be critical thinkers and those kinds of principles. Historical trends. Let me really fast pull up that PowerPoint to make sure that I'm telling you guys. Oh, right here. Oh wait. Historical trends. Okay, so this one talks about like the demography of slavery. So being able to, you don't need to know like the specifics of like, this is where like this many slaves went to this country and this time period, but being able to say like, these countries got the most slaves, and this is kind of like how they were able to, like, this is where slaves came from, and you know, paying attention to the really sharp rise in slavery and what contributed to that and what contributed to the decline of slavery, and then also understanding that timeline that Spencer shows all the time about like slavery and then peonage system, poll taxes, the new Jim Crow era, segregation, mass incarceration, understanding what came when. But yeah, just kind of understanding the basic things of slavery. With universal factors, sorry, the internet in my apartment is so bad, so it takes me a long time to load. Okay. Understand the basics of the strange situation, the experiment that was done from Bowen and Ainsworth. Do you guys feel good about that? Or do you want a reminder on what that is?
Could you just briefly go over it?
So it's a strange situation, and it was an experiment where they put a mother and her young child in a room, and then the mom would leave and come back, and they would look and see how the child reacted to her leaving. And then a stranger would come in and leave, or sorry, the stranger would say the mom would leave again, and then they would look at if the child was distressed, how it responded to the stranger, and then the mom would come back in, and then how the child responded to the mother when she returned. And from this experiment, that's where we got the different attachment styles of secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And that's one of the things that they have found, like, attachment has been important and beneficial for everybody. Like, that's a pretty universal thing. There's 4 hypotheses. There's universality, normativity, and then sensitivity and competency. So kind of understand the differences between those. And then in terms of family structure, the thing that is really important for families is stability, not necessarily marriage. So when we're looking at like universal predictors of healthy families, it's stability, companionship, and legitimacy. Those are what are really important for families. Yeah, okay. And then privilege, stereotypes, oppression, understanding what privileges, giving examples of what that looks like, stereotyping, why that's harmful, also what that would look like, oppression, examples of oppression, examples of systematic oppression, things like that. And then economic inequality, understanding what economic inequality means, what contributes to that, what kind of people are at greatest risk for it, the reality of it, like when we talked about, I think actually this was in the race lecture, but talking about the experiment where they sent out resumes that were the exact same, but Black perceived names and names normally associated with being white, and then criminal records and seeing who got callback. Okay, the economic inequality is when we talked about the wealth distribution and how the top 1% has, I don't remember off the top of my head how much they have, but they have like half the world's wealth or something, maybe even more. But, and then like the bottom 4th percentile has like, I don't know what the words are I'm looking for, but the spread is very uneven, right? The bottom half is using like 10% of the world's wealth or something like that. And then the top half uses the rest of it. And the 1% has like 70% or something. Those numbers are not accurate, but that is the general point of it, is an unequal distribution of wealth. And then today we talked about gender. We finished our gender discussion. Yeah, those are kind of the main ideas. Let me read over the midterm really fast. Yeah, the things we just talked about, those are the big points. Let's see. Okay, yeah, looking over how to become a good family scholar will be important, and responding to different opinions. Yes, those are the biggest things. Does anyone have more questions, or was there something that I mentioned in that very fast overview of main topics that you would like to discuss?
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
This
we
is
will
great.
see you later. Thanks, Hunter.
Thanks, you're the best.
Sydney or Janice, do you guys have any questions? Oh, Janice is gone. Sydney?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
awesome. Yeah, we will see you in class.